I'm LeiLani Cauthen, the CEO of the Learning Council and publisher of our news media organization. And I have with me today, just so I make sure I say everybody's names right, Devan DeLashmutt, Chief Technology Officer of West Ada School District.
That's correct.
Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
And then Aimee Larsen, who's the administrator of the digital integration strategies for West Ada, which is such an awesome title. I can't wait to hear what you do. So this is awesome. And then also Paul Zimmerman, who's the director of technology from Blaine City School District.
Blaine County School District.
Blaine County. I'm sorry, I wrote CTY and I don't know how to spell. All right, so Blaine County School District. Okay, so I think this is a really good perspective for us to have today. Are we all on camera? Okay. All right, so, and then we're going to ask the audience to heckle and ask questions too later. Particularly, that would be particularly fun. So we want to start off with kind of what your role is. Tell us a little bit about that, and maybe even what's changed about it. But then we're going to get into the discussion of what you think about this shift in our environment with people to require a lot more flexibility and aim us at more personalization. Okay, so what you do, what about more personalization and more flexibility? Are we good with that? Do you want me to call on you first or third?
Start the same order you
Okay,
did before.
okay, let's do that. Okay, all right. So let's call on you.
You might have to give me those as we go. So,
okay.
So as you mentioned, Devan DeLashmutt, CTO for West Ada. So my primary role is on the operational side of technology. So in West Ada, we're the largest school district in Idaho. So we have about 40,000 students. So our technology team reflects a little bit of our size of our district, and we provide a variety of services from field technicians who do repair and support what's happening with student devices and teacher devices in our schools, all the way to some of our senior teams, Tier 2 and Tier 3, who are systems administrators, network services, all the way to a little bit on the other side of the house, which is report development, data warehousing. We create and maintain our own data warehouse and do a whole in-house reporting structure. So we have a wide range of services that we provide. We have about 55 to 60 members of our team depending on the day. And so from an operational perspective, we really work on that. And then our goal, of course, is to partner with our digital integration specialists and our academic side to make sure that we're tailoring our services to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our students primarily, and then of our staff next. And that means making services easy to use and making sure that they have access to those applications and things that need to be approved, and making sure that people have everything, all the tools that they need, and get services for all the applications and devices we have.
It's awesome. So it's not like a small job, is what you're saying.
No, it's not small. It does feel like anytime anything plugs into the wall, it's our responsibility. So we do take it is a full service. So we do blocks. Clocks, bells, speakers, everything to supporting the learning management system, running our student information system. This is
A lot.
That is a lot of services.
Yeah,
Yep.
a lot.
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. So, Aimee, I would have loved to hear your role first. This is a new role title to me, and it's super exciting.
Well, it is. It's not a new role title in West Ada. However, it has not been a role that has been filled for the last 2 years. So prior to taking this position, I actually am still currently transitioning from building principal to this position, but before that I was actually a digital integration specialist, which Devan referred to that team, and there was an administrator of digital integration pre-COVID. And then when COVID hit, some changes in staffing happened and that position was not filled. So for the last 2 years, our district has not had a person in this position, which is interesting considering the need for technology implementation, but I think at this point we've arrived at this place where it's time to refocus efforts and to really capture the vision of the district and how technology can support that vision, and where we want our students to go, what we want them to be able to do, and how technology can support that. And so this position was reestablished with that intent. It is evolving. And our superintendent, as I met with him, said this position I see evolving further. based on the vision and the direction that we go. So I think that's one of the exciting things about it. It's also a challenge because it is continually changing. But I am very fortunate to have worked with, we have 4 digital integration specialists that serve our entire district, one assigned to each region specifically, but they work very closely as a team. And having been a part of that team on that side and also knowing the work that they do in supporting teachers, supporting administrators, really from that systems lens of when we say all means all, how do we systematically go about moving a system forward in technology and integration and implementation with the tools available to us, so that things are aligning, working together, and that we can be better at collaborating building to building across district and really looking at things better. So that really is the purpose of my role at this point, is to look at it through that lens of the systemness of it, and also to really take technology through the instructional lens. What's the end result? What do we want technology to help support? What's our objective? And then working backwards to really create an implementation plan.
Yeah, and that's the hard part.
Yes.
Yeah, just working backwards to create the implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 6,500 people across the district, that's not small.
No,
In fact, I think really the biggest problem is the people, it's not the technology. Because we just had a conversation about like what's coming down the pike, right? Technology can do a lot of stuff. It's the getting the people to do it problem, right? So that's what I'm hearing is a big part of your role. Okay, so then I didn't let you answer yet the other part of it, which is, the structural, the flexibility requirements, the total personalization around me 100%. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that being a large public school system, we face some obstacles in achieving that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to be quick work. I don't think it is for anybody, but I think in particular with changing a traditional system that's as rooted as we are, I think it's going to be incremental steps. And so part of that is just the awareness that and the work that we've had to do to provide access to instruction to students in new situations. So whether they're at home because of an extended illness, whether it was COVID related or some other thing, we have now done the work, at least the groundwork to start to provide access where there was no access previously.
Yeah.
And that causes in turn teachers to start rethinking the way they structure their instruction and activities and how they're gathering evidence of student learning. So I think some of that work will lead us to a more personalized system.
Mm-hmm.
We are looking at other technology as a district that will help with that guaranteed and viable curriculum piece, where when we say this is what students must know, all students must be guaranteed to know this, then we have provided the structure and the resources to deliver that to teachers to then deliver to students. So we're beginning that work, but I think we're a long ways off. When I hear some of the ideas, I think there's a lot of work to do and a lot of culture to change. And I think that also exists with our stakeholders, our parents and families. You heard our superintendent mention, and I've heard it a million times as a building principal, the balance with face-to-face and screen time. So how we structure that and how we learn what that looks like to be successful, I think will help us get there, but I think it's going to take some time.
Yeah, because that's a non-starter in my mind, because like the kids are already on unbelievable amounts of screen time. How dare you as a parent? You would bring this up to me? Like, really? Are you bringing that up to me now? Because you know and I know that your kid's on the screen like huge quantities of time. I'm just trying to get them to learn something, right? So this is a big issue. But the other side of that is the purposefulness of the human interaction, right? If you are purposeful and it's like thrillingly, fantastically, a great time to be in school, then like, yeah, they're going to do their screen time in order to get ready for the upcoming thrill ride of school. So this is really, isn't this such an interesting moment to be alive?
I think it's
so
really
weird.
exciting to be a part of, but it's
Yeah.
also uncomfortable.
Yes, this is very
So-
uncomfortable, yes. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Well, I'm excited for your job. I want you to keep like a diary so I can check in. This is awesome. Okay, so Paul, like I kept you waiting, so you probably have like 19 answers ready for me now. So same thing for you, right? Flexibility, personalization.
Yeah, so I kind of hear the stuff that you guys are saying, and I have 3,200 students, 500 staff-ish. So a little different than you folks, but I am in the fortunate position where we can be a little more nimble than what you guys are able to do. I always joke that education changes at a glacial pace, but my glacier is much, much smaller than yours. And so we have an opportunity. So the things that you do operationally and the things you're doing on the instruction side, we have operations to take care of, but we also, because we can be flexible, we're able to look at where can we push the envelope? Where can we create momentum behind this project? Where can we use this technology or this tool to personalize something in a low-risk environment? Because my low-risk environment is going to be, 50 staff and 900 kids versus many, many more that you would have, and it allows us to push that envelope and try new ideas and try new things. And so my team is really focused on, I was thinking of that graph that in that first presentation that went like this, that parabola that was there. He was just talking about, we get here and technology does all these things. Our role is using technology to go the other way. Like how can we make technology not be part of that graph? We want to bring you down with technology. We want to look at your workflows. We want to hear empathetically about how are you trying to do this? What is that thing over there? Or what have you not thought of? That's our jobs. And we can be a part of that, affecting that personalization change by just listening to what it is. Because we have the keys to all of the technology. We know what it is. You have the keys to the instructional side. You guys have to work together. We have a similar setup too. But with that, we can hear them and say, okay, personalization. But then I'm thinking about you, and you were saying a lot of how it's whimsical that we can, do these different kinds of projects, and all I kept hearing was like, it's so much more complex than just, we can make the classroom better, we can have differentiated learning to do this thing. The person is involved, it's really complicated, the factors with the student are involved to make that a possibility, so we have to be careful when we're like, all right, everyone cheer for this great idea. It is, but it's deeper because there's so many layers to get to that. And how do I drag all those layers with me, even the layers I can control, like the staff, I can drag them with me, kicking and screaming sometimes, but I can't drag the students with me. But how can I create a system or a culture where the student will come along? And when you were saying about the teachers, and I'm thinking of, what if a teacher's about to retire? His engagement's different.
Yeah.
So his lessons aren't engaging. A teacher's brand new, they don't know how to make engaging lessons. Or the kids have never experienced engaging lessons, the teacher doesn't, and the kids are like, what's happening here? So there's just, it's just so wildly complex.
Let's define more teacher and the present day, because this is hard. I don't think we can come up with an accurate one. But I want you to say what you think.
I've reflected a little bit on that, just with parents taking on more of the, I can access learning at home, and I know how to do math, so I can teach my kid how to do math. I've heard that. There's obviously teachers go to learn the pedagogical practices needed to help someone learn something and be able to apply it. And that's the piece, that just because you know something doesn't mean that you know how to teach someone else how to do it. So if you take content out and content aside, a teacher can learn the content, but what they're really applying then is the how do I help someone learn and permanently apply their learning to be effective and practical. So how are they going to then use what they've learned to then build on that and continue to build their skill set? So I think in my mind, whether a teacher is delivering the content or facilitating, the end goal is that they're helping the students to learn something through the instructional design, whether that's through something that's digitized, whether that's group work at a table, whether that's carpet time, whatever that looks like. They're designing the learning experience and based on the learning outcomes that have been established.
Things like that role as facilitator is where technology can play a role, so that students can explore and do different activities in different ways, and show their learning. And sometimes I think it's hard, I know it's hard for me, with such a diverse team. I always feel like I need to be an expert in each area, but it's just not possible. And I'm not sure that teachers can be the expert in each one of those things either. They need to be the facilitator, and I think it's really hard to step away from that. I'm going to impart and give you that knowledge, and I think technology can sometimes help with that. I do think that, I want to step back to something you said before. I think that one of the powerful things that we've done in West Data is, I think we've always been very careful to remember that technology is a tool. It can be a powerful tool. Sometimes it's just not the right tool, and it just shouldn't even really be part of the conversation. And I think we've really focused on really the the art of being a teacher and what the best practices are for teachers, some of those instructional skill sets that we really need teachers to learn, and then trying to give them tools to actually help with their profession and couple those together, as opposed to focusing on, hey, here's a tool that's going to help you do this. No, you're doing it for an instructional reason. Here's some tools and some ways you can do that. Some are technology based, and here's some really great other ways to do that, right? You don't have to have one, and maybe you shouldn't. That's the skill set, and what it takes to be a great teacher is that you can bring all of those things together.
Yeah,
So,
but I love that. I love this whole conversation. I love the way you said it. I love the way all you guys said it. It's awesome. I think where I'm kind of wanting to have us go with the conversation is a little bit more about the fact that the Learning Council research is showing we're kind of moving into, and you probably feel this way even as I say it, more of a golden age of administration, right? Like teaching is level 1 of discourse amongst all of us, right? And what are they doing, and how are they doing it, and what tool, right? And how are they facilitating, la 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 la. But I think we're also we're coming into the maybe second step now of a 50-step staircase of how do we become fantastically facile at tech arraignment behind what's happening in the classroom, right? How do we really get really good at that? Because right now we've got like a lot of old green screen student information systems, stuff that's kind of, out there, maybe not integrated. Then we got point solution here and point solution there. And everyone I talk to is like, is there an easy button for all this stuff? Can we have like the easy button? We just want one, right? Can we have like one software to do it all? And I'm like, that's like the one ring to rule them all. And no, you don't want that level of power. But it's that's kind of where I'm at. I feel like you're talking about, and you are talking about an evolution you're personally experiencing too. We're administratively evolving. We tend to, as administrators, look at the classroom and talk about the classroom and talk about the teaching and learning, but not as a body politic of how all of this comes together. And I think we're moving in that direction. And I feel like you're on step 2 of a 50-step staircase. What are your thoughts? You go first.
I think in the administrative circles that I experience, things that I'm around, I think there's more empathy in the administrators now than I have experienced in the past. So administrators are willing to, and these folks like me and other ones that I work with very much want to hear from a teacher in the classroom, tell me how you're doing it. Like, talk to me. Like, what are you stressed about? And that openness is very new in the administrative level, because before, this kind of evolution, it was very about, you guys are over there, we don't trust you. We're over here, nobody trusts us. And it was this constant back and forth when at the end of it, we're all producing the same thing. We're all trying to just produce people to go out into the workforce, like someone said earlier.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing. We just have different roles to play in that. The custodians are just as important as the tech people. Tech people are just as important as principals. Teachers are just as important as administrators, because they all serve a different role. You take one out of that machine, and one cog comes out, the machine doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And so that empathetic approach, I think, has a lot to do with this evolution and how we're getting better. And from a technology standpoint, it's very, very useful to be empathetic, because I can hear what they're stressed about. They don't know what they're stressed about. They don't know what they're thinking and what they're worried about. They just know how to express all of this frustration.
Yeah.
Our job as advisors is to come in and say, I understand and I hear you. This is a way to use technology to change your workflow over here to be a little more efficient here. I can't give you an easy button, but I can make it easier
Yeah,
by
I love
talking
that.
through it this way.
Yeah, I love that. And so what I'm envisioning as you say that is a little bit, I was harkening back to what your superintendent said. How some teachers, like you guys have had a problem with Microsoft Teams, because like one will put a folder with subfolders this way, and the other one folders with subfolders, and then the subfolders with this way, and then kids can't find where they're going, and so you don't know if it's a problem with math or something. See, this is what I mean by you can spot it. Moving into a golden age of administration, let's all get on the same page with file foldering, okay? At least step, you know what I mean?
That's
so
part
we're
of
kind of
that
going there.
systemness that I
Yes.
was talking about, and interestingly enough, when COVID hit, I was starting as a building principal in an elementary school.
Wow, what a time.
It was, not really sure what I was thinking there, but
Yeah.
it was an exciting time. But I was also at a school that, in terms of technology progression, they were at the beginning. So coming from a instructional technology background and supporting district with technology implementation, to walk into what felt like the Stone Ages a little bit, We were starting at square one, but that was the conversation. What does our buildings, what's the consistent system in our building that we're going to use to set up our Microsoft Teams? So that when you think about the end user, the student or the parent, it doesn't matter what classroom they're in. If I'm a parent and I have 3 kids at elementary, at Paramount Elementary, I know that in every class team, there's going to be a landing pad, and in that pad, there's going to be, this is where I access the information that I need to know, what I need to do for the day, the resources I need to use it in the assignments and tasks. But that probably came from the system experience that I've had that wasn't happening in other buildings. So principals start collaborating, what are you doing, what are you doing? And pretty soon that came to the surface of, we need a system. Whether it's a district system or a building system, really what it ended up being was, that really probably should be building by building. So principals have that conversation with your leadership team. But those were new problems that we'd not yet encountered. And so, but it did bring up the conversation of, when you're talking about ease of use for the students and parents and effectiveness, we do have to look at this through a little bit more of a system mindset than just the Wild West.
Yeah. You know what I love about this is, as a software developer myself, and I have a lot of software people that we employ now, right? And you just spoke the exact same kind of words that you will hear a UI UX designer say. The user interface, the user experience, the seamlessness, it's the same button for everything, right? Like this, you've entered the UI UX world, and you're doing great so far, so it's awesome. Okay, so Devan, what are your thoughts? Same sort of line.
Well, I was kind of thinking about what you were saying, and I think that is something that I see shifting tremendously with our current administration and with COVID, is that, ask a teacher, what is it that really needs to be done in the classroom, and that feedback loop is really important. I think one of the lessons learned for us with COVID and having such a large district, and then if you think about all the other issues in the world, supply chain and all those kinds of things, and it's how do we rapidly come up with a way to put something out, get feedback, take that feedback in a meaningful way, and change the course, and maybe move a little more quickly, and actually kind of move past the barriers that we have from our traditional calendar, right? Typically, I think in a normal school setting, it's coming towards the end of the year. We're not going to start something new at the end of the year, or, hey, it's summer. All the technology stuff has to be done in the summer. You've got to get everything done in the summer. Well, those just might not be realities anymore. They don't allow you to steer or move the ship very quickly, and you certainly may not be able to deal with, the supply chain issues that you have. And then, of course, add budget and all the other layers on top of that. So really thinking about it differently is being forced upon us. I was really contemplating the systems thing, and it's funny because you think of a system like, hey, we have it in place, we have this way of doing things, that's a system. And I think what I've seen is that really is a combination of the system is always evolving and warping, because you learn more and you have to meet the needs of, if you're listening, you'll have to change. And it seems to me to be defining what's really important, what are the have-to-haves, and what needs to be common across maybe all your schools. Maybe that's just across your elementary schools. Maybe the LMS design and what that looks like for a course structure is really important, but it's by grade level. Maybe that has to structure and that has to balance for whatever reason. So identifying what's really important, and then making sure that people understand the rules that they can operate in and how they can add to that system, and so that they can do their own thing, so they can get that buy-in and really dig in and do the work that they feel value. I think it ties into some of the presentations we've had, and I think what I've learned is, as I've tried to build systems and I feel like I'm supporting schools, if I'm too, hey, you've got to do all these things, it's like, hey, but you don't understand, you don't know. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't understand. It's like, well, what is really important, what really has to be done? So that loose, tight kind of thing, and we talked about that in some of the groups, really I think is kind of critical to building systems and ensuring that you have that flexibility to move forward.
Yeah, sort of continually negotiating your guardrails. Like where you can step and where not to step.
And that doesn't always feel good for people. So
yeah.
And I was going to mention one other thing that it just kind of crossed my mind is that another thing that we realized is that some of that flexibility that we're needing for students to meet some of our needs of our students is also something that we've needed to provide for our staff at this time. And in particular, IT folks, there's a lot of varying personalities and needs in that area. We have some people that have a high degree of analysis that they have to do, and being in an office where somebody can walk by and even if they're not part of the conversation, they're just constantly interrupted for one reason or another. Really working from home, they're way more productive than ever being on site, right? And so kind of that thing where you have some students who they really actually work better in a virtual environment is really part of our society and part of what you see as the distribution of our staff, and being able to provide that, I'm sure, in a classroom structure for some of the staff that we have. Could we have support staff work in different ways and different hours to support what we're doing? Do we have to continue to do things that way? And certainly we need to be there to answer the phones for parents at until 4:30 in the afternoon, but there's probably lots of other things that we could be doing to use our staff and have our staff help us in different ways.
Yeah. So that was like many mental tangents for me that you just went into, and that was awesome because it sort of gave me an overview. And I'm agreeing with you. I really believe that we're in a moment of potentially advancing towards a golden age of administration, which is different than a classroom focus. And I think the two are going to friction against each other a little bit for a total change coming down the road, right? Like, because time and space is a big issue for people, and flexibility and wanting full personalization. And yet, as a manager, you kind of got to hold the form of the organization, otherwise it shakes apart, dissolves entirely. So you can't just like throw it all out and start new. You can't just go from I was Kmart and now I'm Amazon, right? You can't do that overnight. It's not going to work. But you do got to be cognizant of what's going on in the outside world. So the final thing I want to ask you is I know your superintendent brought up the Zimmerman model, and I wrote an article, I'll just say it, many years ago, where I questioned Zimmerman because it doesn't acknowledge the outside world. That was my one analytical or intellectual attack on Zimmerman, right? Because Zimmerman's really great if you're talking about a perspective that's really insular to your own organization and your existing structure. But once you look at the speed of change of the outside world, if you don't take that into account, then your view and what you think Zimmerman is very isolated. It's very like small, right? So what are your thoughts on that? Are you feeling friction more than ever before? And is that adjusting your thinking?
Friction from?
The outside world, culture, environment, expectations, things are different.
So when I saw the Zimmerman model and I was thinking about that and hearing what you're saying, I've never been a fan of using of the models because I've seen them around me and I've read about them, and I have always found that the models are, you have a group of people that find a model they like, they stick on that model, they stop thinking outside of it.
That's true.
And they fall into the funnel and they stay there. And I think in our current way education is working, and certainly in our district, is being flexible and nimble to all those outside factors. To me, friction is my resistance to that change. But a lot of times change is opportunity, so I don't see it as friction. I see it as, that's some input that I have never had before. I want to hear what that is. And I want to absorb that. And I may not agree with you, but that gives me at least a perspective on why you're saying that. Even if I can't provide it for you, I can still get your perspective, and I appreciate that. So friction is very adversarial to me, and so I don't see that as I don't experience the friction.
Sometimes friction can be good because it makes a diamond.
Exactly.
Right? Like diamonds are good.
That's right.
I'm just saying.
Totally.
I have one.
Yeah, so I welcome the input. I welcome the challenges that people present us with. I'm grateful for the team that I have, that we can do what we do. And some much smaller than you guys, but we can say no to certain things and explain why. Or if we're forced to do something, at least we have the understanding of where that came from. And so.
Well, you're a fantastically evolved human being, and that's great. because that's a really good perspective to have, and I love the way you said that. Okay, so same sort of scenario. Over to you, Aimee. Like, what are your thoughts?
I think, like you said, when the feedback comes, no matter what stakeholder it's coming from, it's good feedback. So are we getting a lot of that feedback, or is it isolated feedback? And so I think you have to quantify it a little bit before you look at making a big change. In terms of the feedback that we're getting from outside sources, whether it's parents or the community, we're getting feedback that some changes need to be made in types of of humans that we're producing to go out into the workforce and the skill sets that they have. I think we need to look at some of the standards in terms of what we want students to be able to do, produce, apply, some of the complex higher level thinking strategies, and is our current method of instruction producing that, allowing students an opportunity to do that. And I think we've been doing that work as a district in redesigning instruction and looking at effective instructional practices and trying to move toward that standards-based, standards reference grading, where we're really seeing students progress in their ability, in their proficiency with standards. I think that helps with that. But I think that we have to also take a look at the feedback and say we can't do it all, because there's certainly been a lot of feedback in all different modes, right? Social media in particular, of what people want. And I joke with my own staff right now, it feels a little bit like Burger King, make it your way, like that. That's what they're really asking, and you've alluded to that several times, like parents getting to dial in, be very, very specific. And I heard from another school district in here some of the things that they're doing, which are incredible. But in our current system, that's not possible right now. So we have to look at what can we change, what changes, what input can we receive, and what positive changes can we make toward that change. But again, what's possible and what's not possible within our current constraints, whether it's size, staffing, funding, whatever that is, what can we do? And I think we just have to be strategic about that and communicate that back out to the public. We're working toward this. This is one step toward that, and partnering with the community to try to do that. But definitely there's a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way you said that. And I like the fact that when I meet with administrators, you guys are also like reasoned, wonderful people, and yet, the mainstream meetings out there, like school, blah, it's like, it's really not true. I'm just going to be going record as your trusted media source. Okay, so Devan, what are your thoughts on this area?
Well, I'll bow to my highly evolved colleagues, and I feel like I'm a little bit more of the Neanderthal here in this topic. Things have drastically changed, I think, for us in technology. It used to be if I had a technology issue, I had a problem, a concern, I was worried about sending an email to 3,000 or 4,000 people. Now I need to communicate to over 100,000 parents. That's really
scary.
Difficult, and a different level of coordination and expectation. Parents need, and I really support and understand, they want to know what kids are doing with their devices. They want to see what kids are, what searches they're doing. They want to be able to, if the device is in the home, they want control over what they can access, and want to be able to turn those devices on and off, and have a lot more control and insight into what's going on. So for me, it's definitely another level of, I wouldn't say friction, but of expectation.
Yes.
And if you think about, for us, it's been a big uplift for us. If you think about our device, we had one device for every 2 students at best before the pandemic. So we spent $9 million purchasing devices to get to one-to-one, which meant that we had to use every device that was in our fleet in addition to that $9 million, just to be able to get close to one-to-one. Those devices, between 3 and 5, 6 years old. It was chaos. Building systems to make sure that we have device protection and that we're communicating to parents about that a device has been damaged, and just all those operational issues and the expectations of that goes into that. I think it's been really, really quite difficult to build a system to support that and to do it just with the pressure of what's happening, and then to do it. I think with, for me, I had to have some grace and dignity for it as well. We had some really big issues going that way, since our systems, we didn't send devices home. So, we really didn't have the structures for managing and maintaining and doing all of that anywhere in the world, right? For wherever a student is, and to make sure that they have the needs, to make sure they have access to the internet, to support them, to have a help desk, like all those things. So I'm really honored and proud of the work that we've done, and I'm really honored and proud of that technology. A technology department has to support the needs of a district across every department. It touches every person in every way. Just think about child nutrition, try and serve that many meals without having technology there to get students through the line, right? We touch everyone and everywhere, and it's a daunting task, and I feel like we are an integral part. I think you mentioned that everybody plays a really important part in education. Every person who's part of this system should really be proud of what they do. It takes all of us, and I'm really proud of the role we take, but boy, this has been really challenging. So I'm feeling like I'd like to take some of that criticism, feedback, and be a little more listening, but boy, we're still working through it. We've got a long ways to go.
Yeah, and I think we are in the, like I said before, I think we're in only about step 2 of a 50-step staircase. So, yeah, hold it together. If you need a shoulder to cry on, like I got Saturday open. So, yeah. Okay, so this has been awesome, right, guys? This is like, well, how awesome is it we got to come together? Okay, so anybody want to pelt them with some heckling or some question? How about it? Who's up for that?
That
No?
sounds so fun.
Let's
West State,
do
you guys
it.
are off limits, you know?
What do we think, right? Is that good? Are we a wrap? I think we're a wrap. Otherwise, you guys are shy. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you so much.